This clip is from The Buckle Bomb Show. New episodes drop every Sunday at youtube.com/bombmediaproductions. All right, we'll move on from there to our Quick Jabs segment, where we talk about just run through a few quick stories that happened during the week. The first thing I wanted to bring up was Freddie Prinze Jr., the semi-retired actor, wrestling podcast host, and Jedi Knight Kanan Jarrus has come out on his wrestling podcast, Wrestling with Freddie. And I like Freddie Prinze Jr. I haven't heard his podcast, so I need to go listen to his podcast and see if it's something I could be interested in. He's also a former WWE writer back in the early 2000s. He came out and talked about on his podcast that he's had some plans in place to start a wrestling promotion. And he's on track. He was looking at arenas and what it would cost. He talked about the fact that he built a big lighting rig for an arena because he's already got that in storage because a buddy of his was selling one for cheap, a used one, and those things are crazy expensive, even used. So he went ahead and jumped on that, even though he wasn't ready yet. And then he's working on things. He's doing some Netflix stuff, but he's hoping to have a promotion up and running in 18 months. He did say he's got a 3-year plan. In other words, he can run the business, the promotion for 3 years before it has to start making a profit. What do you think of this news with Freddie Prinze Jr. and his promotion?
I believe that the more competition there is in professional wrestling, the better it is for not only the fans, but for the wrestlers trying to get booked. For Freddie Prinze Jr. to come out and have an 18-month plan and 3 years before the company needs to make a profit, that is one of the smartest ways somebody started a wrestling promotion in recent memory. Granted, I really want to pull for Freddie Prinze Jr. just based off a story that came out like 2 weeks ago alone about him with the whole putting John Cena in his place kind of deal. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this goes. Lord knows with this WWE 90-day release schedule that they're currently planning. Lord knows there's going to be enough talent out there to run another viable promotion.
For sure, there's plenty of talent that is out there, and with some experience in either NXT or even AEW right now, as some contracts are being run out in AEW. He's not hiring anyone right now, though. He does say, I expect, and he does talk about a little bit about it, that he's looking for a place. He talks about a commercial realtor that he knows that's already helping him look for some properties. Freddie Prinze Jr. lives in LA with his wife, Sarah Michelle Gellar. They have both not retired from acting. I said semi-retired. What's that?
So you mean Fred really married Daphne in real life?
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah.
I didn't know. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was from the first Scooby-Doo, too, where they met. Or maybe they knew each other before then. But yeah, wow, they're married to each other. And I'm a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. So, yeah, I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. They live together in LA. I called him a semi-retired actor in the introduction to him. That's because he doesn't do a lot of movies anymore, and that's not because he wasn't getting casted. Same thing with Sarah Michelle Gellar. They like to stay home with their family. They like to stay in LA with their kids. They don't like to go and do a shoot in Australia or do a shoot in Georgia, or they want to stay in LA. So they do projects that basically keep them home and close to each other and close to their kids, which is admirable and respectable. So that's why like Freddie Prinze Jr. and even Sarah Gellar do a lot of voice work these days primarily, because it keeps them local in LA. They don't have to travel all over the place. I expect that this promotion will not be a traveling promotion. It won't do house shows. It'll just be a TV promotion filmed out of a location in LA, a warehouse or whatever property he gets, just something, kind of a studio size almost with, just a few fans. But
And
he's go ahead.
with that, I mean, look how well that's working currently for NWA Power. It's shades of an old school studio wrestling show. It's wildly over right now. And then you got to look at Lucha Underground. They did that in LA in the warehouse district.
Yeah,
Granted, if it wasn't on El Rey Network and it would have maybe got that Netflix deal that they were trying to pursue or something like that, we would possibly be talking about we'd still be talking about Lucha Underground today. So yeah, that's a genius idea on his part. Plus, with the uncertainties of life right now, with the words that we can't say, possibly making a comeback and people going back into lockdown, stuff like that, having a stationary bubble-like atmosphere to run a show out of,
for sure.
it's genius.
For sure. Yeah. I do think this could be the first show because Freddie Prinze right now has a deal with Netflix to produce some movies for them,
It's my
and he
understanding
does talk about that. Go ahead.
that's my understanding. That's what's going to actually be funding the wrestling promotion. That's why it's an 18-month process, because he wants to get the Netflix projects in the can.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be part of his funding for that, or his personal funding. But he also already has an established relationship with Netflix through that deal. So maybe Netflix, do they want Netflix is in a place right now where they need content because you've got all
Yeah.
these different streaming companies starting up. They're taking their content back from Netflix and putting it on their own streaming services. So Netflix needs more content, more weekly content, and that could be a place where they go. This could be the first, streaming exclusive wrestling content that we see from a promotion. That'd be very interesting. He does talk about wanting a TV deal, wanting the show to be 2 hours. The great thing about streaming is that you don't have to worry about commercial breaks between segments. You don't have to worry about length necessarily. You can go an hour and a half, 2 hours. You're not constrained to TV time.
Yeah.
So that may be an interesting way to go. But he's talking
And
about it like he wants to get on actual TV, which we'll see.
which, if you want a gun for actual TV, more power to you. It's just that, in my opinion, look at the platform Netflix actually has. For years, Glow was one of the most popular shows on Netflix, and it was about professional wrestling.
Yeah,
And granted, there was more
true.
other things mixing it from a dramatic standpoint. You also had Lucha Underground reruns when it was in limbo from the El Rey Network on there, which was wildly successful on Netflix. Um, there was also a possibility that Netflix wanted to bring Glow back as a standalone promotion for Netflix exclusive stuff. If you already have a deal with a company and they're really chomping at the bit to figure out how to get into a sports market, like Netflix has desired, openly discussed about their desire to have sports on Netflix in the past, I think it wouldn't hurt to at least hear them out. But
Hmm.
in my opinion, like you were saying, Netflix needs content. Netflix has the money. Let them pay for everything.
For sure. I think another potential spot. I mean, Stars, and they have a streaming thing as well. They've got obviously Heels is a big show, so there are possible landing spots because right now everyone is content starved. Everyone wants more content for their streaming platform or for their channel or whatever the case may be. It's all about content right now, and wrestling is a lot of cheaply produced content. So we'll see how that goes with Freddie Prinze Jr. We'll go ahead and move on to our next quick jab here. Bret Hart was interviewed for Lucha Libre Online, and he was asked about the recent rumors about coming into AEW to manage FTR. He said that, well, I'm a happily retired guy. I'm a home guy now. There's not a lot I can do in wrestling. People say, what would you do in AEW? What would I do? Referee, manage, be a chairman? I don't want to be remembered that way. I want to be remembered as a wrestler. He did go on to say, talking about wrestlers in AEW, I'd be happy to help a lot of them, and I know a lot of them. I talk to a lot of them, sometimes by text or on the phone, and people call me up. I always got advice, and I can always pinpoint little things that can make a difference in a guy's match or something that he's doing. But I'm a guy that likes being home, so they're going to have to call me on the phone. I wish I could go do stuff more easily, but I'm getting a little older now, and it's harder, and it's getting harder for me to keep flying around and doing stuff. So I got to pick my days that I can do stuff. There's a lot of things I would love to be a part of with AEW and what they're doing. I know they got some great wrestlers there, and I have a lot of respect for the organization and all that. But right now, I'm happy at home. What do you think about these comments by Bret Hart?
Good on him. He's earned it. He is a pioneer in what we know as technical professional wrestling today. His name still holds so much weight within the industry that if he wants to just sit at home with his wife and just enjoy the fruits of his labor from the yesteryears while looking forward into the twilight of his life, go for it. He's earned it. I respect him for that. And yeah, basically what it is you have to pick and choose your spots in life. I mean, people put so much emphasis on always chasing the all-powerful dollar and this and that. But the reality of it is you also have to find that time to make time for significant others, family, life, stuff outside of a job. And I don't know how much Bret Hart's made over his career, but I imagine with merchandising and things like that, he's pretty well set. So, yeah, man, you do you and you enjoy that.
Absolutely. Of course, Bret Hart will be managing FTR at a big time wrestling event in June. All right, we'll move on to our next quick jab here. Cody Rhodes was on Broken Skull Sessions that released on Friday, talking to Stone Cold Steve Austin. I know you didn't get a chance to watch this. I did. I thought it was a pretty darn good interview here. He talked about a lot of things. First, he mentioned the Rolex that he had that was given to him, but he discussed Rolex that his dad was meant to give them, but there was a time when they were broke, and he didn't know until after Dusty had died. He found out from his mother because he was asking about that Rolex. Dusty had promised him that Rolex, and he didn't find out until after Dusty had died that Dusty had actually pawned that Rolex off to pay for Cody to get into acting school before he got into wrestling. So at a time when the family was broke before he had come back to WWE in 2005. So, and there are a lot of little stories with that. They go openly into AEW. They don't shy away from it. They talk about the start of that. They talk about him leaving AEW. And a really good interview that I think you and everyone out there, if they haven't seen it, should go ahead and check out. All right. Go ahead.
Definitely gonna do that, but with them not shying away from AEW, I mean, we all saw the Broken Skull sessions when they actually had Chris Jericho come back on, so not surprising. Stone Cold Steve Austin is one hell of an interviewer. I'm actually, the older I get, I'm starting to think that maybe Stone Cold's interviewing skills is actually rivaling what his in-ring career was, because he's breaking some pretty big interviews lately, at least,
and doing really
yeah,
good with them. Yeah, and
really good, asking the hard questions but not being too pushy with it. Some would say everything that I would aspire to be as an interviewer.
There you go. Certainly someone for you to study. He would also talk about a lot about Stardust and how it got started, peak Stardust, and the things the points in time of Stardust that he liked, including the Stephen Amell run at SummerSlam that year, and then of course where he started to really dislike the character of Stardust and how it was pretty much killing him, and that led into how he left the WWE. So yeah, a really good interview overall. They start with the recent WrestleMania return, and then they jump back in time and go through his career up through AEW. Really good stuff that should be checked out.